Hey, Total Schmidt Show from a cabin again. Let's do this. Total Schmidt Show Season 3 is upon us. Tune in every week. I talk to entertainers from all over the world. Singers, dancers, comics, musicians, drummers, blah, blah, blah. All kinds. Techs, even some cruise directors. Most of the entertainers I talk to work on cruise ships. If you ever wanted to know what entertainers do, how they get through their day, any of the behind-the-scenes stuff about entertaining, we'll talk about that stuff here, as well as we'll delve into some of the entertainers and some of their works, some of their albums coming up, some of the things they've done in the past, things you can look forward to in the future. All that stuff you can catch here on Total Schmidt Show. But either way, get yourself a pizza, a beer, some bourbon, light up a cigar, or some sort of joint, or whatever type of crutch or vice you need to get through the evening, and sit back and enjoy whatever it is I put together this week on Schmidt Show. You're welcome. Hey, thanks for tuning in to Total Schmidt Show. If you're listening on the audio platforms or any of the podcast platforms, thank you. Subscribe to the channel. That would help me a lot. The more followers, obviously, the better. I talk to entertainers. I travel the world as an entertainer, talking to entertainers. So that's pretty much what I do. If you're watching on YouTube, that means you're a member of LennySchmidt.com. Thank you so much for being a supporter. If you want to be a supporter, if you want to join our little ragtag bunch of people that watch my content and get personal Zoom meetings and all that good stuff and tickets to shows and live content, go to LennySchmidt.com. Click on the Pay If You Can button. There's all kinds of member options there that you can support the channel. At the very least, follow us on social media. It's Mr. Lenny Schmidt every single place you go. Leah Canali is my guest today. I've known her for a couple of years. I actually, ironically, recorded her a few weeks ago on the Celebrity Apex, and then I left and did some stuff, and now I'm back on the Celebrity Apex, and she came back on yesterday, so I saw her show last night. I interviewed her. I forgot how funny she was. There's some really cool stuff on here, some cool work she did with RuPaul. There's some, watch the video. If you're watching the video, look at top for the tags. I tagged a bunch of videos she commented. Feel free to check those out while you watch the show. Sit back and enjoy my conversation with my good friend, Leah Canali. On a lighter note.
Yeah.
On a happy note.
On a happy note.
Excellent show last night again.
Thanks.
It's always a pleasure to watch you work.
Thank you. Likewise.
You do a great. Thank you. Wait, what'd you say?
I said likewise.
Okay, I thought I didn't want to say thank you if you didn't say that. I'm like, wait, did I hear that wrong?
Wait,
oh, shit.
Did she like my show?
Did I just say thank you out of nowhere?
Yes, Lenny, I like your show.
Thank you very much, by the way, for saying those words. I love your style, man, because you do. You got you a real cool conversational style with the crowd.
Oh, thank you.
That's real mellow. That's kind of like connection with them. You know what I mean? Where it's not where sometimes you see singers and you're like, shut up, don't but you work off them, and it's like you're in their front room, as you say, so to speak, in the middle. But it's really cool to watch.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I try to be because I think. I mean, yeah, every singer has their different styles, and we all have different backgrounds. But my background, I've done a lot of cabaret work, a lot of piano bar work, and a lot of that is just connecting with an audience, right? It's how you can speak to the people in front of you. And I think some singers get really wrapped up in what they're saying and how they're saying it. But I'm like, no, an audience is human beings in front of you. You're a human being. React to them the way that you would react to any other humans. You know, we're having a conversation. You want to feel, or the performances that I like the best are the ones where you feel really comfortable, you know,
Yeah.
where someone just is like, this is going to be okay. We're all going to be good tonight.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
So
Without,
I try to do
where there's no pressure and everything else.
Totally.
And you're at your best when you're in that mode because you're present.
Totally.
You're totally present. You know what I mean? So you're there and then everything just flows out of you. It's perfect. Yeah, it's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and I love your voice, man. I just love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's real cool. Just and the Aerosmith mashup is brilliant.
Thanks.
That's badass. I like that.
Thank you.
I don't see you do some songs that a lot of people don't do. That's what's cool for a ship performer to watch. You know what I mean?
Thanks.
Like the Dream On thing. That's cool.
Yeah, I try to kind of switch it up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, Dream On, like, look, I'm from Boston. Aerosmith's my hometown band, you know, and I did a gig with Steven Tyler years ago. Granted, like, I mean, I think I was in the building with him for about 5 minutes.
Right.
You know, he got ushered in, probably made $100,000, and I was there, you know, making $200 or whatever. But it's a cool story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, they were like, that was a big part of my childhood. Their music, I love the song Dream On. The thing I love about Dream On is, I think of all the Aerosmith songs, it's kind of the one that sounds the least like Aerosmith, which is kind of funny. Like it's their original kind of like 70s style, and they got much poppier as they got on. And I love the later pop stuff as well, but there's just something really cool about that anthem.
Right.
But for ship performances, you know, you never know what kind of bands you're going to get. Sometimes you get incredible bands, sometimes you get bands that are, you know, a little bit more green. And a big, if you're familiar with that song, a big chunk of that song is Joe Perry's guitar solo. Right. I never know if I'm going to have a guitar player that is going to want to, can hit it or is going to want to wail that hard. So I kind of, you know, went into my musical brain and I was like, okay, what's a way that I can take the guitar solo out but still have something impactful in there? And, you know, our audiences are all different ages, as you know, and you know, the ladies that are sort of in my age bracket, I would say, you know, No Doubt was a big throwback for us. So being able to, I just realized that the chords of Don't Speak by No Doubt are really similar to the ones in Dream On, so I was able to kind of just put them together.
Yeah, it's a cool mesh. I've never seen anything like that before.
Thanks.
It's dynamite.
Thanks.
How long have you been on ships?
I was a production singer about 20 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
I was a production singer in 2007 for Celebrity. I did one contract and one contract only. On the Celebrity Mercury, which doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was the Galaxy class. It's still, the ship still exists. You'll sometimes see it in the Caribbean. I think they sold it. It's called Mein Schiff now.
Oh, okay.
So I did that. And then, I transitioned. I did land work and songwriting for, you know, the next 20 years. And then the old pandy hit, the pandemic hit. The pandy.
You make it sound so cheery and fun.
That old chestnut we all lived through.
Were you in Canada for that, or
I was in Toronto for the longest lockdowns in the world.
They were strict there.
It was very
strict. I
strict.
thought it was strict in LA. You guys were worse.
We were quite strict. I mean, you know, confession, I did go down to Florida for a while and gigged a bit when stuff started to open down there. But it was tough. It really, it shut everything down. All the work I had there was essentially gone, as it was for most performers. And I had worked for an entertainment company in Toronto for about 10 years, and longer actually. And that relationship ended during the pandemic. And I kind of, you know, I had the artist moment that we all had where I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, like, what are things coming back? Am I changing careers? What's going on? And an ex of mine actually reached out to me, and he said, the cruises are returning to service. He's wanted me to be a guest on forever. Right. The cruises are returning to service. Send me a show. And I didn't have one. So I got to writing and I wrote 2 shows.
Wait, so you put all this together
during the pandemic.
Seriously?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh my God, that was just a few years ago.
Yeah.
That's fucking amazing. It's even better than I thought it was.
Oh, thanks.
Incredible. You should be really proud of yourself.
Thank you.
That is really impressive, man.
Thanks.
No shit, man. It's great.
Thank
I don't mean to cut you off, but because it was just 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, my first guest performance was in 2022, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the Edge crossing. It was kind of a cool full circle moment because like my first experience with cruising was as a production singer for Celebrity,
right?
And then when I was brought back as a guest my first was with Celebrity again. So
wow.
It was kind of like being home.
That's really cool.
That's cool.
That's dynamite.
Yeah.
I've always liked talking. One of the things I'll talk to a lot of people that anyone that comes from production and that goes into guest ent is always that's the way to go. You know what I mean? And if you do it, it's really impressive because it's hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard also to get them to kind of accept you back. Maybe a little bit easier for you because you only do one contract.
I only did one contract and there was so much space. And I did, honestly, like, and this is what I said, because a lot of, I'm sure you have this with comics, the cast often on board, because they all see the guest dance, they want to do that, rightly so. You know, it's sort of like the next step up from what they're doing. You know, they all ask me about it, and one thing that I say, you know, real life, not that cruises aren't real life, but you know, land life experience, gigging experience is, I think, really important for the guest tent job. Yeah. Not only just to like build a resume that you can put on a marquee, but also just the experience of performing. So I, you know, had, like, I guess a 17-year hiatus between when I was a production singer and when I became a guest tent. But during that whole time, I was working, I was gigging, I was writing, I built, you know, the stories that I tell in the show. I built my stage presence. I built my repertoire. That's another thing. Like, I feel like a lot of these kids that are in the production shows, you know, they have a certain rep that they're really used to singing, which is great. But like, you know, what are you bringing to the table that's a little bit unique? What is your perspective? And I think gigging more, you know, separate from the ships does help build that. Now, that being said, I also know guest entertainers that jumped right from production to guest tenting and are incredible. Right. So it really just depends on the performer. But I do think that building that kind of base is important.
Well, plus also the experience of playing a room and working a room and just experience, period.
Yeah, and bombing.
No,
everyone has to experience bombing at some point, and you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, it's a huge lesson to learn, man. Yeah. You need those lessons to go, oh, shit. Absolutely. Or then when you're in the same situation, you go, I'm going to handle this differently. You know what I mean? Of course, that's how you learn that stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, the big difference, I think, that a lot of people don't realize when going into producing a show, because essentially what we do, the cruise lines are essentially renting us for the week, right? They're renting our show. Right. Whereas the production kids, I keep calling them kids. A lot of them are.
They are kids.
They're babies. Yeah. But a lot of them, they audition, they get the job. The job is set up for them. They're doing something that is already written for them. They're slotting into a product that exists. Mm-hmm. Whereas the guest entertainers, they're creating a product that doesn't exist yet, and then getting the lines to buy that.
Yeah, you're essentially writing and producing your own product and presenting it to them.
Two different things, right? A lot of people are like, oh, well, how do I audition to do your job? And I'm like, well, you don't really. Yeah. Unless, I mean, there are guest tent acts that are essentially like little mini production shows where, you know, the group acts that are a set, you know, show. Right. And then you could audition for those. But yeah, if you want to be a solo act or create your own group, it's show production, which is another thing that like you learn when you have to do that, when you have to put together a show and you have to put together, you know, a run of gigs. How do you deal with this logistically? Who do you go to for charts? Who do you go to for media? Who do you know, you become your own business.
Well, some of the stuff, this is why Craig and I talked about some of the stuff. This is why it was great to have you on the show too. Yeah. Because you guys are both professionals that built a brand and a company. Yeah. It's what you are, your company. And we were talking about it before we started recording, even the traveling thing. You have to know how to travel. Where I'm going from this gig to this gig, that means I need this equipment and these charts or this thing and that. So you got to plan all that stuff ahead or plan the shows accordingly so that you can book correctly.
Yeah. And I mean, people always laugh because I mean, I'm a shoe girl. I have a lot
How many shoes do you bring?
A lot of shoes. Oh God. I think this time around I had about 14 pairs with me. I literally have a suitcase that's all
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God, how do you do? I can't believe you do that. It's insane.
I do have one suitcase that is pretty much just shoes.
I bring 3 with me, and I think that's crazy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I have 2 different ones for the stage or whatever.
Sure.
And then I wear a pair. If we go to Alaska, I wear boots and then bring the gym shoes. Of course. But whatever. This 14 is. You're only here for a few days.
Well, okay, this run, I was out for about a month and a half.
Okay, all right, in your defense.
In my defense.
Yeah, because you're only here literally 3 days on this cruise.
Yeah,
you can't wear 14 shoes in 3 days.
This cruise I will not be wearing 14 shoes.
I dare you to wear 14 shoes.
I'll take that too. Every hour you see me, I'm coming out with a different pair of shoes. I would do it.
Every function you'll show up with a different pair of shoes. All right, I'm going to start counting them.
Yeah, okay. I'll leave dinner to go to the bathroom, come back, I've got a new pair of shoes.
Every course you have a different pair of shoes. That's fantastic.
Yeah, these are my dessert shoes. Oh, God.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff to be lugging around, man.
It's a lot of stuff, and sequins weigh a lot. I know it sounds silly, but like they do.
Do they really? Oh, yeah, I guess they would, right?
Sequins, beads, anything that's like jeweled or bangled.
How much does that outfit you wore, or how much did that outfit you wore last night weigh?
So, for reference, for the people that didn't see me in the outfit, I'm in a sequin cocktail dress, and then these very bejeweled rhinestone thigh-high boots. The boots actually weigh more than the dress. The
Right.
boots, I'd say, oh God, I think I've had to take them out of my luggage before because they put my luggage up too high.
Yeah.
I want to say they're in like this 8 to 10 pound range.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. The dress is probably about 5 to 6 pounds. So right there, I mean, like if you're looking to keep your luggage under 50 pounds.
Yeah, that's 20 something pounds right there, pretty much, or close.
Yeah, it's wild.
You're throwing the 14 pairs of shoes.
Yeah. You know, and I'm a chunky heel gal, so I like a meaty heel.
A meaty heel.
heel.
See, I go light shoe, low. You know what I mean? It's like anything light is. I just got these new. I didn't wear them last night, but what do they call them? Damn it! I forgot what they're called. They're like they're black shoes with white on top and the side. They're called
the Converse.
No, I wore the Converse last night.
Yeah, you had Converse.
No, but I wore these other. I'll show them right here.
Yeah. I love a shoe moment.
My girlfriend gave these to me for
Oh
Christmas.
yeah, saddle shoes.
Saddle shoes,
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah. I love those.
I never knew what they were called.
Yeah.
And I told my daughters I wanted them for Christmas. And so they told my girlfriend, and she gave me the shoes. So I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So I got to wear them the first night.
Okay. I missed your show the first night, unfortunately, because I flew in.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But I wore them with all black and a tie. I love it. It's
Oh, yeah.
just dynamite.
It's a slick look.
It's a cool look. I like
It's
it a lot. I'm a big fan.
Vintage, like they never go out of style.
Yeah, right. I think it's really cool. So anyway, but
I used to have tap shoes that were saddle shoes, actually.
oh, really? Okay, all right. Do you tap? Of course you tap.
I do tap. I tapped for like 20, 25 years. Yeah.
Yeah, check out your website and all that stuff. So yeah, you did everything. You do everything.
I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, I think.
That's good though. You got to diversify. You got to I do stand up, and that's where most of my money comes from. But then I acted, and I'm in modeling, and now I'm doing this social media and content and podcast. Especially moving forward in this line of work, if you don't diversify what you do, you're not going to make a living.
Absolutely.
You got to be able to. That's how you survive.
Absolutely.
And that's how you're able to adapt. How's how you survived through COVID and were able to adapt to different things, and now you're back on ships. I mean, that was just 3 years ago that you started doing this.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, COVID, obviously, like, live performance largely got shut down. I'm sure you had your fair share of the virtual performances.
Oh, God, they were terrible.
If I never have to do one
so
again.
bad.
Especially, like, I mean, I could see, stand-up would be hard because you want that laugh feedback.
There's about a half-second delay that messes you up.
Yeah, and in music, that really messes you up.
I bet because it screws your tempo or whatever, right?
Yeah, and it's really screwy. I remember doing one. It was the last virtual event I did, and I swore I wasn't going to do anymore because it was a big pain. But look, I mean, I was happy for the work, but,
Yeah, no, I hear you.
And there were some companies that I worked for that, like, really figured it out, that were doing some really cool virtual stuff. Actually, I have a funny story that I'll tell after this one. But, my friend reached out. Big corporations have, like, an in-house event planner a lot of times.
Right,
and
yeah.
they just have money to burn. It's like
that's
whatever.
some corporate gigs for them. They're
Yeah.
great.
And he was like, we're doing a Christmas thing. Can you please do, like, one more virtual? And I was like, okay, for you, I'll do it. And he was like, okay, so everybody will be on Zoom, and we're also doing a costume contest. So, like, everybody's going to be in costume, and you're the one at the end that has to pick the person that has the best costume, and then they get a prize. When I tell you, all of them were blacked out. Like, I could not see any of them, how they were dressed, because it was on Zoom, right? So you can choose whether or not your screen is on. So I was like, I can't even tell what any of them are wearing.
Oh, they blocked. Okay, what?
I was like, well, no one wins. No, I win.
Did you really? That's great.
Like, yeah. It was funny. There was another virtual one, though, I did. I work with a big company up in Toronto that does their... can I say the name? I guess I can say the name. Yeah. It's called You Request Live.
Nobody watches the show anyway.
Yeah, I'll give Arthur some free ads. He's good. We love Arthur. But he has a cool concept. He does it live as well. But the band is called You Request Live, and the shtick of the show is that the audience requests the entire set list. So he's got an app that have all of our songs in it, and then people can request it in real time, and then that pops up, and the band leader tells us what songs we're doing. Okay. So it's cool, and it worked really well for virtual because of the interactivity of it.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of cool.
Which was cool. So we did this big event for, I think it was like an insurance company or something, but it was in Canada and the US, multi-city. It was like an 11-piece band or something. It was cool. And then I start getting messages after the gig from this guy Jay, who I used to hook up with in high school, and he's like, "Hey, were you in a virtual performance for an insurance company just now? Because I'm in Texas, and I'm literally seeing you on a giant screen." And he was just like screenshotting me. So he just happened to work for the insurance company. I was like, "Hey, I know that girl."
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, so funny.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, those Zoom ones were. I did a handful of those. They were horrible. I did, when they opened up, they started to open up, you were talking about going somewhere. I went to Oklahoma, Utah, and somewhere, Chicago. Chicago later, because that one didn't order up. But Oklahoma, but when you traveled during COVID, like Oklahoma, you showed up, it was like there was no COVID. Yes. It was like people in Oklahoma. I'm like, oh my God, it's just people just hanging out. You're like,
Florida was very that.
Yeah, it was just people at a bar. And in fact, I met a guy that was from Chicago that owned a bar, and I went to his bar after the show, and he was just starting out doing stand up. So I met him and his wife. And when I left, he sent me a message. He goes, hey man, I got COVID, and some other people got COVID. They were at that function, but I never got it. I didn't get it then. I got it later. I got it on a ship like 6 months later. But
of course.
Yeah, of course, that's right when I got it. But yeah, when Oklahoma, they were walking around. It was weird. It was just weird because I'm coming from LA.
I know.
Where my daughters and I were going to the store at 6 a.m. so we could get in, standing 6 feet away from each other, all the way down an alley because that's where the line worked out or whatever.
Same.
Yeah, it was weird. Which is, of course, it had to be that brutal in Toronto or Canada.
It was a really. I landed and I was like, this is different. I mean, I will say, obviously, like Florida had its sort of like laissez-faire-ness about it, but they, in terms of infrastructure, were set up a little bit better to have live music outside because they do just because the weather is nice. They already have patios where you can be outside and be a bit further away from people. So a lot of the gigs I did out the gate, they were outside and then we were far away from people because they just had that's just how it was, right? Like that's how the buildings already were manufactured. So.
Yeah, they're already made to be able to be open year round outside.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's so many open air like bars and stuff.
Totally.
Right on.
Yeah, so it was a little bit different just in terms of like in I don't know about LA, but I know in Toronto they were like building outside areas and getting like weird permits from the city to
that was one of the things that they really screwed. They didn't handle it well in LA. I mean, nobody handled it well anywhere, really, I don't think.
We didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, it was caught everybody off guard. And,
of course.
But LA, the thing they did do is they built all these outdoor patios, which were great and worked out awesome. But then what they do that was really bad, because I had a friend that lost a restaurant because of this. They told them, you need all this shit. So they got heaters and all this stuff, and they got all this stuff, and they let them open up. They opened up, and then 3 days before Thanksgiving, they said they had to close down and they're like, I just dropped like $30,000 on all this equipment, and so now there's these empty outdoor patios everywhere, and it hurt people. People got, and around that time I did Uber Eats to get through. That's what I did. Yeah. So I was walking in these places at night picking up food, and there's families in there working, trying to stay open. I mean, it was just a weird, brutal time, man.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I mean. Props to Canada, I will say we did have governmental aid, which was not quite enough to cover all of your expenses, but at least I knew my rent was covered, so I wouldn't have to get evicted or whatever. But a big thing that I did during the pandemic, which I probably wouldn't have been able to do, was songwriting, because songwriting was very easy to do virtual, right? We were just doing Zoom calls with artists. We were doing virtual recording sessions.
Oh, that's cool. That's great.
Yeah, so that was cool. I mean, we even did, like me and my writing partner, we did sessions with people in the UK. We obviously did all over Canada. We sometimes, someone would be in LA, one of us would be in Toronto. I even remember doing one, because I mean, obviously this was sort of coming out of the pandemic, but when I started on ships, I sometimes would be coaching from my cabin. I'd just be like, virtual from here. So that was a cool thing that probably wouldn't have happened, had the world not been shut down. Because I think the thing with artists, I'm sure you have this, where like we are on the road so much and we gig so much that sometimes it can be hard to just sit down and focus on like a new project. Yeah. But that time allowed us to have focus time to.
It kind of forced you to. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Which might have helped toward you developing a show. Gave you time. You know what I mean?
It gave me time. It gave me time to think about what my shows were, and even like since then, it's funny. So Craig, who you had on the other day, he was in my first guest stent group. I think there were about 14 of us on board. It was crazy. There was so return to service. There were so many of us. It was
because they threw you on and kept you on, right?
Threw us on, kept us on. Casts were going down all the time with COVID, and they needed lots of people.
God, I can't forget that time.
Yeah, it was wild. But for me, because I was new to it and I was really nervous because I was starting over doing something new. I mean, like obviously I'd been performing for 30 years, but I was new to that type of performance, and that core group. I mean, I'm still friends with all of them. We still have a WhatsApp group going.
So I have that too. We were on the Norwegian Encore, It was me and 4 other people. JP Parent, who's a magician out of Canada. Melissa McLaughlin.
Oh yeah, I know Melissa.
Frank Townsend, and but we hung out. We were on that 6 straight weeks we were on that shit.
Yeah.
All of us. It was Frank Townsend for a while, and then another friend of mine after a while. But yeah, we had the same chat.
Yeah.
Where they'll call me out of the blue and we'll just talk. Yeah. But yeah, we spent every night together.
Yeah.
Hanging out in Melissa's room, drinking wine. It was so funny. When we finally got to go to the buffet, like they opened up the buffet again or whatever. Sure. When I looked at, one day I just looked at JP. I go, "What are we doing tonight?" And he goes, "What's the point?" It was literally the same thing we did every single night. We just hung out, and there was nothing to do.
Yeah. And I remember at first they wanted all the guest tents sitting at like different tables, and we were like, "This is not happening. Like, it's just we can't do it." But no, it was such a lovely core group, and they were so supportive of me, and it was really cool to come back and be with these seasoned people. You know, like someone like Craig has been doing this for a very long time. His show is so, perfectly tailored. He's so talented. And I was on with all these people that had been doing it for a while. And so it was cool to like watch that. And they were supportive of me. And it was a great experience.
What a weird time to step in for the first time. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was.
It was everything was very different. And then it's changed since then and gone back kind of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I have no frame of reference for what this job was like before, but I mean, obviously, like, I've heard guest ents talk about, like, the before times and the after times.
Well, every line's a little bit different. The stuff they did before, stuff they did after. It usually has a lot to do with being in crew areas and not being in crew areas. And, but during that time, I mean, whatever. It was. We were also lucky in a lot of ways. Because, like you mentioned, the money thing, the U.S. we were taken care of too for the most part. We were covered, but in Mexico they didn't do that.
Yeah,
in other countries,
a lot of places didn't.
Right. There were a lot of people that struggle. They're still trying to get out of that debt.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, in a lot of ways, we were lucky.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting that company that I worked for prior to COVID. It was one of those things where like. I was their head entertainment booker, and I was also one of their top acts. So I performed and also did the back end. And it just was running me into the ground. And like sometimes when you're in something, you don't realize how much it's like tanking you until the door closes.
Yeah,
and then you're like,
true.
Oh, wait a minute, that wasn't good. That wasn't great. I was not in a great place, and I needed the door to kind of slam in my face. To reinvent. It was like a phoenix kind of rising.
Yeah.
I needed it to end, and I wasn't the one that was going to be able to do it. It's like when you're in a bad relationship and you're like, and then the person finally breaks up with you, and you're like,
right.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
But now it's done, and I can restart, and that. It really was a reset for me.
Well, it's a great, really, like, I went through that, my divorce was like that. Yeah. For years I fought the divorce, and then one day it just hit me. I was like, why am I, oh my God. But it's, to keep moving forward and staying present, it's like it's like you lost weight. It's like you feel like you lost a bunch of weight, and everything's fresh again. You're like, oh my God, and you reinvent yourself. It has to do with reinventing yourself constantly.
Absolutely.
Which actually comes from creating constantly. I think if you're writing songs, you're constantly creating. You know what I mean? And it kind of gets you in a mindset where you can push yourself to go and try different things.
Yeah. It was cool, actually. I had a really cool moment. I mean, you were just talking about how, people message you after your show on Instagram, and, we all kind of have those moments where someone reaches out, and there was a little girl, not little, she's a teenager, I think, but I'd peg her maybe like 13, 14, and she came to both my shows, and she came to me after the first show, and she said, after the second show, and she said, I saw your first show. I'm a songwriter too, and I went back to my room that night and I started writing songs.
Oh, and I was like, that is pretty cool.
I was like, this is why I do it. And I'm like, oh God, she's following me on Instagram now. I gotta be careful about what I post.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, she follows me now. She's messaged me. She's like, I'm so glad I met you. I'm feeling really inspired. And I was like, okay, like that's actually
cool.
Really cool. It's really cool, Cause
that's rewarding.
Yeah.
I used to teach kids all the time. I taught acting and comedy. And it was, if I could have made enough money to survive at it, I probably would still be doing it.
Yeah.
I really loved it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a short story. I've told this before, but this is one of the greatest moments ever. There's a little kid, Lucas, that was in my class. And he was kind of a socially awkward kid. A lot of kids, and he was great. But his mom supported my class. She had all her kids go through it. It was really awesome. So I taught Lucas. The premise was I'd let the kids do whatever they want to do, and I would tone it into a show, and we would do it for the school, and then I'd do it in the theater. So I go, Lucas, what do you want to do one year? He goes, I want to do stand up. And I was like, oh, okay. All right, let's give it a shot. So he wrote it. You know, long story short, he does this whole act. He gets this stand-up built, about a 10-minute act or whatever. So I bring him out. He does this. We do the school theater. The whole school, K through 8, is there, packed, right? Whoa. He goes out. I bring him out. He does stand-up. I'm backstage. He crushes.
Really?
I mean, crushes. It just destroys. And he was the kind of, a lot of ways he was kind of the weird kid when he was little. And I used to use him in videos with my daughter. He's a really funny kid. And he was a good kid. He was great. But I'll never forget walking out to take him off stage. I was coming from backstage, and he was walking toward me, and the look on his face was maybe the greatest moment of my entire life. And I just put my hand up, and he high-fived me really hard. And I go out and go, Lucas Anderson, and the place goes nuts. And
I love that.
I'll never forget it.
And sorry, how old was he when he did that?
He was probably 4th grade, 5th grade.
Whoa.
Yeah. He was Lily's age, so... Yeah, had to be 4th, 5th grade, something like that.
Wild.
Because Anna was up near maybe not 6th grade, 5th grade, I think.
Because I feel like with comedy, you don't often, like, obviously with singers, there's those sort of, like, you know, prodigy children that have been singing since they were 5, and you see those videos of them, and you're like, oh, wow, like, you've been singing like that since you were that age? Okay.
Yeah.
But comedy, I feel like you don't see it as much. Like kids are funny, but to do stand-up at 5th grade?
Yeah, he did a good job. Like, you see it when guys start writing. There's a lot of comics that have come up and started early.
Sure.
But once they start working, that's when you notice it. When they get on stage with a young age, you go, that kid's going to be good.
Sure.
That kid's going to be really good. And you just know right away. He's got it. He's funny. He's clever. Even in the joke writing. Like 3 or 4 jokes, you're like, those are 4 great jokes. That's really good. This is easy to you. It's more not easy, but
it's in you.
It's in you for sure. Yeah. If you just keep, now it's to keep working at it and building a career. You know what I mean? Because lots of people are funny and then they don't do anything with it.
Sure.
Or can sing great and don't try or whatever. And I'm not belittling the trying. That's the hard part. Is building a career and then reinventing yourself and surviving.
Yeah, and I mean I think there is a difference, and I've talked to some people about this, between like pure raw talent and drive and professionalism to actually be a professional in this career.
That's
right?
True.
So like, for example, a woman came up to me last night and she's like, oh, I sing too, not like you, but I sing. And I said to her, I'm like, I truly firmly believe this. I think everybody, unless you're like severely tone deaf, which is very rare, everyone can sing at least one song. Tone deaf. I don't think so. We can find a song for you.
I don't think so.
But no, everyone has at least one song that they can nail. You know what I mean? That just sits in your voice, whatever, because physically we can all do it, right?
Right.
And there are people that are also incredible singers that get up at karaoke and smash it. Does that translate to wanting to be in this career? Those are 2 separate things, right?
Right.
And like I've had people reach out to me and be like, well, my friend is really good. He's a great songwriter, great whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's great. He's got the basic thing that you need. But does he want to do the hustle? Does he want to do the, trying to get gigs? Does he want to do the back end stuff? Does he want to do all the things to make it a career? And those 2 things might not align.
Right.
And in fact, a lot of times they don't.
You're right.
And people are always like, oh, well, this person's so talented, why aren't they doing more? And it's like, well, maybe that's just not for them. Or maybe they don't want to take something that is, just a hobby and turn it into a career.
Right.
Like those are 2 separate things, right? And look, sometimes they align. And, we're 2 people that work in this industry and have made the talent and the other stuff work together.
Right.
But for a lot of people, that's just not, it's not for them and doesn't need to be.
Right. No, it doesn't. Well, you notice it with a lot of young comics now, because young comics, most of their stuff is on TikTok and Instagram.
Of course.
They don't know about working in front of a live crowd. Yeah. So they'll do this, and then they'll try to do the live crowd thing, and they go, I got millions of followers, but it's a whole different animal to get up in front of a crowd.
Absolutely.
And perform not just 45 minutes, but do it regularly as a business.
Yeah,
and
singers are the same. You
know,
like there's plenty of singers that are absolutely incredible on a little screen when they're in their room, with stuff, and then you put them on a stage and they literally don't know what to do.
Just can't do the show, right?
Yeah. And then there's also live singers. I mean, I struggle with this, not struggle, but because my background is primarily in live performance, so I actually get more nervous. It's so funny to go into a recording studio, because a recording studio doesn't lie, right? Like, I mean, you can tweak and you can do stuff, but everything is very like, this is what you sound like.
Right.
Whereas live, it's like, it's done, it's over, unless
move
somebody
on.
gets a video, whatever. And there's more like interaction, you know, you're selling yourself for many reasons, not just vocals. But in a studio, it's very like, this is you. So sometimes I find that even more telling of like, how I am as a performer. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's you're right. Studios don't lie. Do you know I did voiceover work? It was like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With voiceover work, they're so precise too.
Yes.
They'll be like, "Can you bring it up a little bit this or a little bit that?" I go, "I think so."
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to be funny. You know,
Totally.
I'm trying to nail the lines.
Yeah.
And
I've done voiceover work too. And sometimes, I don't know if this has ever, I know it happened to me a few times actually with voiceover, where like they would coach you one way and be like, do it like this, and then they send it off to whatever client or whatever it is for the commercial, and they're like, actually no, we wanted this, and then they call you back in and you're like, can you do it like this? And it's like, I could have done it like that to begin with, but you didn't tell me to.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, there's direction involved. You know what I mean? They got to tell you what they're asking. There's a middleman between your product.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where somebody steps in and goes, do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're wrong, and you're like, but you got to do what they say because they brought you in.
Totally.
A lot of times I've been brought in before. They'll go do it this way, and I wanted to go. This is the way I did it the first time when you told me to change it.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're like, sure, no problem.
Yeah, sure. This is your idea, 100%.
I don't know why I think.
I didn't think of that. Oh, just forget the take 3 takes ago. It's fine. It's fine. We're good.
We're good. We're awesome. So, how are you still doing land gigs, of course, right? Balancing?
Yeah, I do about 50-50, I'd say, at this
point.
Good,
that's great.
Yeah, like I'll sign off. I've just done a pretty long C run. I started back in, mid-January now. I've been gone since mid-November. But I sign off, I'll do a run of land gigs in Florida.
Yeah.
And then I'm back on ships in February. And then it's back to land after that.
Okay.
So yeah, I still do, you know, but to be honest, like I think this year, March, I might try to take just a little bit of time to like regroup, do some show work, do some writing, just because that month's a little dead for me right now. I mean, who knows? Things always pick up. But I think I'm due for a little bit of just like creative time.
Yeah. No, that's cool to have that time off too. And then like in this case where something comes up and they reach out.
Yeah.
And you go, all right, I'll go out for like 3 days or whatever and do a gig.
Yeah. Okay, I'll fly to St. Kitts. Sure.
Yeah, why not? I can do it. I got the time.
Why not? Yeah, I was happy it worked out actually.
Yeah. My daughter would love you, first of all. She was my youngest daughter especially. She's a huge RuPaul fan, by the way, too. She's like a huge. How did you get involved with the whole? When I looked at your website,
So there's a lot of RuPaul on there.
Well, it's the your hook is you're the queen that sings for queens.
I'm the queen that sings for queens.
Yeah.
So I have sort of like a fun it many years back. So I mean the apex of it all, or the start of it all. I mean, I grew up in a very liberal household. So I grew up. My family was. They introduced me to the LGBT community at a young age. So I kind of grew up with that always being just a part of my life. And then I went to theater school. So obviously, the queens are there.
Yeah, right.
And then when I left school, I lived for a couple years in Boston in this dingy little apartment on Fenway, right next to Fenway Park.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, and the back of Fenway at that time, Lansdowne, was a club district. It still is, but a lot of the clubs are gone now. It's a House of Blues now, but they all had these gay nights, and so I lived with 3 drag queens.
Okay.
Which was hilarious. Some of the most fun times of my life. And I this was before RuPaul's Drag Race. I mean, RuPaul obviously was a thing, but this was before RuPaul's Drag Race. And they really shaped a lot of. I mean, if you want to know how to talk to an audience, go watch drag queens work.
Right.
Because that's their entire.
Really.
Yeah, I mean, they have to be so quick on their feet, right?
Yeah.
And they're comedians, they're singers, they're performers, some of the banter that I use in my shows is literally from the queens I used to work with. Like,
really?
They're just so quick on their feet. The good ones, anyway. But yeah, and then, we all kind of went and did our different things. And then years later, I was doing a cabaret that I wrote, actually. It was called All My Friends Are on Broadway. And the whole riff of the show was basically like, as you know, in this career, we end up working with a lot of people that do a lot of things, right? So we all have the story. It's like, oh, I used to work with that guy. Now he's, Bruno Mars or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And that was the thing. I have all these friends who have been on Broadway, have been on TV or whatever, and a bunch of them have now been on RuPaul's Drag Race and are, beloved queens that have been on the show, have come out of the franchise. And in that show, I did this, I love to do, soulful remakes of songs. I kind of like to, slow things down, break it down. Because I believe that...
You have a great voice for that. That's perfect for you, yeah.
Thanks. I believe that if it's a good song, a pop song, you can strip away all of the production and just do it with voice and an acoustic guitar, and it'll be a good song.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
That's really the earmark.
A lot of songs are like that. Like good songs.
Good songs.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you want to cry your eyes out, listen to "Believe" by Cher, just stripped down to just voice and guitar. It's really beautiful.
You know, good one, "Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You." You ever see Miley Cyrus's version of that?
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Just a guitar.
Yeah.
It's really powerful. Yeah.
So there's some really cool things you can do with a well-written song. And so I took the song "Sissy That Walk" by RuPaul, and I did that with it. And a friend of mine took a little video of it and put it on Facebook. And then it started. This was when Facebook still had the viewer count thing, the embedded videos with the viewer count. Right. And it started going a little viral in the UK. And I was like, huh, interesting. And I liked the version of the song, so I was like, let's do something with this. So I went into a studio, and I did the song with a band with horns, and then I filmed at a Vogue ball. So Madonna's Vogue, they have these big competitions that these kids compete in, and I filmed it there. And Ru used to do voguing back in the day. Put the video out there, didn't really think anything of it, and then it ended up being shared and reshared by RuPaul. So RuPaul found it. Okay. And
oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and then it went a bit viral. So I was trending with Madonna for a while. I was trending with Katy Perry. For a while, that video was everywhere on LGBT sites.
Right.
And it was very cool. And then after that, Ru started following me. Started sharing all my stuff. So my albums she shares all my videos. She knows me by name.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so she was just in Toronto actually doing a book reading signing thing and was like, hey, is my friend Leah Canali here? And all my friends, I was on a ship and all my friends, I started getting face
oh my God, she's...
Literally, they're like, where are you? I was like, I don't know. I'm on a ship. I was in my head, I was so sad about it, but I'm also, is it cooler that I wasn't there? I'm
it actually is kind of cooler than, I'm sorry, I'm a little tight schedule.
Totally.
No, so have you met her face to face?
Oh yeah, many times.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, she knows my name. When I walked, the first time I ever met her, I walked into a room.
That's so great. She did that at a book signing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just randomly,
out of the blue too.
Yeah, I have a video of it. But yeah, and then my writing partner, Stacy, she's amazing, Stacy K. She's another guest stent actually. She reached out to me and she was like, "Hey, so Canada's Drag Race is coming. We should start demoing songs." And so we did. We went into a studio and we just started writing. We just started writing songs with the idea that we were going to try and get it onto Canada's Drag Race. Right. And eventually, I would like to write for Ru eventually as well, but, we knew that the Canada franchise, and I knew some of the producers on the show. And we had written this one song so Brooklyn Heights is a queen and she's the host of Canada's Drag Race. Okay. And her tagline is that she's the Queen of the North. Okay. So we had written a song.
That's a good tag.
Yeah, Queen of the North. And we tried to get it to her, everybody was trying to get her this song because we knew she was going to be the host. So we're like, okay, if we can get her to record a song, then maybe the show will pick it up. Yeah. Couldn't get it to her. And then I love the industry. And this is a great, the industry is so funny. My friend Dan, he used to be a cruise director actually for Royal. He said, honey, I'm bored at work today. I'm going to be your agent. And she's like, I think I know Brooklyn's manager. We used to drink together back in the day. Let me just be your agent for the day. Just emailed Steve. Boop, 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 boop. A day later, they were like, yep, we love the song. We'd love to talk to you about recording it. It literally was just because my friend who knew him.
Oh my God.
And it's stuff like that happens, right?
That's the coolest.
I know, right? It was wild. So then she came in, she recorded it. It was awesome. And then she wanted to add on the winner of the first season because the first season had already been filmed by the time we were doing this. We were kind of trying to get stuff onto the second season because we didn't even know if the second season was going to be picked up. We figured it would be, but you never know.
Yeah, right. No, yeah, right. Yeah, when you think it's going to, sometimes it's not.
You got to kind of wait to see how it goes. But Drag Race is a pretty sure bet. But the winner was the queen called Priyanka, and she got added to the song. And then she's like, well, when are you writing for me? And so then we ended up writing her EP. And that song had a song I talk about in my show that went viral. Again, like in sort of like the Drag Race circles.
Yeah.
But, you know, sometimes when I play that come through clip, like I'll see the people in the audience that know that song. A lot of times it's the cast. They'll be like, that's on my workout mix or whatever.
Well, it's such a niche. It's a niche business now.
It's a very niche market.
Now you can make a living in a niche market now. I mean, it's the way everything's with the internet and all those podcasts.
Totally.
Those podcasts are really successful. I'm like, it's what? Like, you know, I don't even know what they are. But
Absolutely.
then there's other, like, oh, I know that guy.
Totally. Yeah. And for the fans of that franchise, they're rabid.
They're
for
loyal.
content.
Yeah, right. They're
really
hardcore supporters. Right.
And it's really interesting actually writing for queens that come off of that show because their fan base just wants content.
Sure.
They are hungry for content, right? They want songs, they want merch, they want videos, they want everything from these queens, but they're not necessarily focused on the queens. I mean, some of them. I mean, Pri has done a lot of music now at this point, and some of them do a lot of music, but music isn't the forefront of their portfolio. So it's interesting writing for an artist, because a lot of times when you're a songwriter, you're writing for an artist that either has a following already and they're bringing you in, or they're trying to get a following. Well, these people already have a following, but it's not necessarily for music, right? Yeah. So it's interesting because you'll get the numbers, you'll get the streaming numbers, and you'll get these like boosts, but it's just a part of their whole package. It's not like Rihanna releasing a song, and that's, you know, and we found that with a lot of these releases. But yeah, I mean, that song, you know, she's made me a lot of money because it ends up, Pri has done, I mean, she was the host of an HBO show called We're Here, so we had music on there. We hosted the Canadian Country, we were the house band when she hosted the Canadian Country Music Awards. We wrote for them. You know, she's had songs placed in Netflix. We've had songs placed in like Apple ads.
That's great.
So it's been
all
really
that stuff
cool.
Snowballs from an email that your friend one day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're talking about how funny the business is. You're right. One right connection, one right phone call, and look at the career that path out in front of it.
Yeah.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Wild. Yeah.
Congrats, man. That's
Thanks.
Great. That's really cool.
Yeah. So that's sort of how I got into the franchise. And yeah, like, I mean, in terms of the American side of the franchise, a lot of like the sort of like, I'd say maybe top 20 queens, I know them socially. Like I just know them because back in the day, I knew some of them. I knew before they were even drag queens.
Right.
And now they're, you know, megastars because of this show. It would be like knowing Kelly Clarkson before she was American Idol.
Right. Exactly.
Right. It's the same. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh wow, I've got this mega famous friend. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into the franchise. And I mean, I really like. It's interesting writing for queens because sometimes we are like Stacey and I are their voices, right? Because they're not. They're a lot of them are men impersonating or emulating women. Mm-hmm. So they want, you know, when they record stuff, some of them want to use their own voices. Some of them want female voices. Right? So sometimes we will end up recording, you know, choruses or hooks or whatever for them. Okay. Or sometimes they'll do the verses and we'll do the choruses. So our voices end up on a lot of the songs too. And RuPaul's franchise does that a lot too. Like there's, you know, recordings that need voices for the girls to lip sync to. So yeah, I've done a lot of studio sessions for them, and it's been really cool. It's an interesting niche to write for, because, you know, a lot of the music is quite poppy. It's very house, you know, that sort of like 90s throwback stuff, disco in there. And, you know, sometimes you're writing, you know, hey, queen, cunty, you know, and then sometimes these queens just want to write just straight up pop songs. Right. You know, so it's a cool exercise in songwriting.
Yeah, no, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
And it's very layered. You know what I mean? You're very layered. You got a million things going on. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good, though. Like
good.
we're talking about, you got to diversify. You know what I mean? That's great, man. Good for you.
Thanks.
That's great. Thank you for doing this, man.
Oh my God, thanks for having me.
Are you kidding me? No, it was great. Right to the camera, plug anything you want to plug.
Yeah. What am I plugging right now? Well, I mean, my Instagram, if you want to follow me, is the Leah Elise Canali. I think I'm the only one. And it's ALLYCE. Same on Facebook. I'm Leah Elise Canali, leahcanali.com. You can find me on Spotify, on YouTube, all the things. I will likely have new music coming out mid-year. Is the idea, as long as I can get into the studio in the next month or so. So that, keep an eye out for that. And yeah, if you're on a celebrity ship, you might just see me.
Check her out. What's the name of the video, the first video that RuPaul saw? that's shared.
Yeah, so it was.
Is it still up?
Yep, it's called Sissy That Walk. Sissy That Walk Soul remake, I believe. But if you Google Sissy That Walk Leah Canali, it'll definitely pop
I might
up.
edit it into the video podcast if that's cool.
Do. Yeah, of
and
course.
that means you'll get a copyright click.
Oh,
from
God,
me.
yeah.
We're
Yeah,
talking
you
about
love
this
the
the other day.
copyright clicks, yeah. I mean, it's good that YouTube does this.
Yeah,
so
it is good,
yeah,
but it's funny when you click yourself.
Yeah, you click yourself like, wait a minute, I have a
that's
copyright
mine.
infringement
I'm the
against
guy.
myself.
Yeah.
Crap. Okay, well, thanks, YouTube.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're still watching? That's amazing. Nobody does that. Nobody, but you did. That means you want more. Pick one of these clips. Go for it. I dare you. Hey, also follow one of those social media thingies.